Hey everyone, and welcome. We've all had a bruise at some point and probably thought nothing of it. But today, we're going to dive into how that simple little mark can actually act as a silent witness telling a seriously complex story to a forensic investigator. So let's find out what secrets it's holding.
So, what if an injury could do more than just, hurt? What if it could actually speak? Well, in the world of forensics, it absolutely can. A bruise isn't just a mark, it's a piece of evidence. It's a physical record of an event, and it holds all these incredible clues about the weapon, the timing, and the very nature of an attack.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the basic story of what a bruise even is. Then, we'll look at why every single bruise is different. After that, we'll learn how to read the hidden patterns they can leave behind, tell time using their colors, and finally, we'll see why all of this is so critical in the eyes of the law.
All right, let's kick things off with the fundamentals. To decode the message, you've got to understand the medium, right? So what's actually happening under the skin when a bruise forms?
The fancy scientific name for a bruise is a contusion, and really all it is the result of some kind of blunt force. It's got to be strong enough to break the tiny little blood vessels under your skin, but not so strong that it actually tears the skin open. That classic bluish-purple mark you see, that's just blood that has leaked out and gotten trapped in the tissue. It's all happening behind a closed door, so to speak.
Okay, so here's where it gets really fascinating. No two bruises are exactly alike. You could have the exact same impact on two different people, or even two different spots on the same person, and get completely different results. Let's see how investigators start to profile this evidence.
First off, think about the tissue itself. A loose, flexible area, like under your eye, is kind of like a big, empty room. When those blood vessels break, the blood has all this space to spread out, and boom, you get a huge dramatic bruise. But firm places, like the palm of your hand, that's more like a storage unit that's packed to the gills. The tissue is so dense, it just doesn't let the blood go anywhere. So the same exact hit might only leave a tiny little mark.
And of course, the person themselves matters a lot. Children and the elderly tend to bruise much more easily, right? Their tissues are just softer or have less natural padding. But on the flip side, someone like an athlete with great muscle tone has this sort of natural armor. Their muscles protect the blood vessels, so it takes a much harder hit to cause the same kind of bruise.
And the list of variables just keeps on going. Women generally bruise more easily than men. People who are obese also tend to bruise more readily. Of course, bruises are a lot more obvious on fair skin, and this is a big one. Certain medical conditions, like hemophilia, or even some medications, can make bruising way, way worse. So the key takeaway here is that context is everything. An investigator can never just look at a bruise in a vacuum.
Now let's build on that. Sometimes a bruise does more than just show that there was an impact. It can actually leave behind a distinct pattern. We're talking about something that's almost like a fingerprint of the weapon that caused it. This is where the story gets really good.
One of the most classic examples is the tramline bruise. So here's how it works. Step 1, a rod-like object, say a stick, hits the skin and makes a dent. Step 2, the force stretches the skin and breaks the blood vessels on either side of where it hit. The pressure actually forces the blood away from the center. It's just like squeezing a tube of toothpaste in the middle. And that brings us to step 3. You're left with two parallel lines of bruising with a perfectly pale, uninjured area right in between, giving you a perfect outline of the weapon.
And this just goes to show how much the depth of the bruise matters. When an injury is really, really shallow, what's called an intradermal bruise, it can preserve an amazing amount of detail. Seriously, we're talking about the pattern from a shoe sole, the weave of fabric, or even tire marks, basically stamped right onto the skin.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the how, but what about the when? This is where the bruise reveals its own internal clock, all through a really predictable sequence of color changes. As the body starts to heal, it breaks down all that trapped blood. And that whole process actually changes the pigments in the blood, which is why the bruise changes color. A fresh bruise starts out reddish. Within a day or two, it turns that familiar bluish purple. Around day 5, as the body starts processing the iron from the blood, it can look brownish. Then it turns greenish and finally yellowish as the last bits are cleaned up, before it fades completely in about 2 weeks. This whole color show gives investigators a pretty solid timeline for when the injury happened.
But, and this is a really, really important disclaimer, this clock is only an approximation. I mean, a huge, deep bruise is going to take way longer to change colors than a small, superficial one. A person's overall health plays a massive role too. So while it's an absolutely invaluable tool, it has to be interpreted with a lot of caution and expertise.
So we've gathered all this info, the type of force, a potential weapon, a rough timeline. Now let's bring it all together and see how these silent clues can speak loud and clear in a medical legal investigation.
Just look at how this all connects when it gets to court. A clear pattern can point directly to the type of weapon used. The location is incredibly significant. Small bruises on the inner thighs, for example, can be crucial evidence in a sexual assault case. But the age, which we figure out from the color, can tell the most powerful story of all. If a victim has multiple bruises of different colors, some purple, some green, some yellow, it's a silent testament to repeated assaults over a period of time. It shows a pattern of abuse, not just one single isolated incident.
And this physical evidence really speaks to the severity of the crime. Don't underestimate the physical toll here. The source material notes that a single, trivial-looking bruise can lock away 20 to 30 cubic centimeters of blood. Now, imagine a victim with dozens of these injuries, all of different ages. The cumulative blood loss can actually become medically significant, which proves in court that these were not minor injuries. They were part of a serious, life-threatening pattern of assault.
So the next time you see a bruise, just remember it's not just a mark. It's a story, it's a timeline, and it's a piece of evidence written on the body itself. Which leaves us with a final thought. If a simple bruise holds this many secrets, what other details are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to decode them?